virtual community, Howard?
When I came up with the term, it was 1987, and the emphasis was really on community rather than the virtual part. People were asking me whether anyone besides some kind of maybe anti-social electrical engineer would be interested in using computers to communicate with people. And I was very excited because what I had discovered in bulletin board systems and ultimately the well were real people who became part of my life. In fact, babysat for my daughter. I was at their weddings. I went to their funerals. I sat by their deathbeds. Anything that you do in a real community.
It's easier to be friends with lots of people online than one person in person.
Much as that we have a sense of visibility that we've never seen before. So we're used to being able to see a certain group of kids in certain places, right? The mall, we can see kids hanging out with their friends that way. But as adults, we don't typically have a really good sense of all the kids and a good sense of where they are and what they're doing when they're with their friends. What's going on online is, in many ways, it's youth space. So they're there, they're goofing around as though they're there just with their friends. And so what ends up happening is you can get a sense of what's going on really in broad sweeps. And it isn't just the kids like the kids in your community, but the kids who are in different communities all around the world with all sorts of different ideas of what is normative behavior, right? And that what is normal, what is common really differs. And so we see these behaviors online and we're like, oh my gosh, it's radically different today than it ever was before. It's not really.
What is possible today with social technologies is profound. Namely, you can be sitting at your house in your pajamas, and you can actually impact the lives of someone sitting in a country hundreds of thousands of miles away that is wrought with political strife. You can say, I'm here, I'm listening to you. One of our Ning networks is the Congo Wall, which was created by Eve Ensler, who had just gotten back from the Congo with her V-Day organization, where women are being brutalized as a means of fighting a war. And the fact of the matter is they feel alone. And with social technology, women from all over the world could come to this Ning network and leave a message for the women of the Congo. You're not alone. And those messages, over 2,000 women and men around the world actually contributed a message. They printed them out and took them to the hospital in the Congo where women were recovering. No one is alone anymore. And I actually think that's a really powerful thing. You can sit at your house and make change.
Why an online community can be conceived of as a community?
Well, first of all, I think it's always important to think critically about our technologies and our enthusiasms, and there are some serious questions to ask about online relationships. People look at me and I dress a little unusually and they think, oh, you must be from California. Of course, people in California think, oh, you must be from Mars. So, you know, your next door neighbor is not necessarily the person that you are going to make a connection with. In fact, the person you make a connection with might be on the other side of the world. Where am I going to get my relationships? Am I go to a bar or a coffee house, or do I log on online? So not everybody has that kind of old village, small town, everybody knows your name, physical community. And in fact, the more I've looked into it, the more I've seen you need to think critically about those kinds of communities as well.
One of the reasons people are drawn to virtual communities like Second Life is people are hungry for community. They're hungry for meaning in a society that is oriented around the production and consumption of consumer goods. Buy more stuff, mean, it doesn't make people happy. I know this sounds like a gross oversimplification, and in some ways it is. But when there's an alternative to be able to reach out and to find kindred spirits who have common interests or share a common perspective on life and to feel fulfilled by that, people will do that even if it is a somewhat low resolution version of reality. And I would call a virtual world like a very low-res version of real reality. People are hungry for meaning, hungry for contact. Well, it's a funny thing, which is the experience of connecting with other people in Second Life, in the virtual world. It is experiential in a certain sense, so that it becomes difficult to describe it except by appeal to having had a similar kind of experience. So if you've ever felt really connected, you've come to some place, I'm not talking about computers, technology, or networks, and you found some people, and you go, I like it here. I feel like I belong. This is new. This is interesting. I can be who I really am here, and I can't in other places. I want more of this. I want to invest in this. I want to become known here. I want to contribute to it. This feels good. It's that kind of experience that is sort of missing in people's lives. So when they find that in a place like Second Life, they get hooked.
There are very few places in the world where I can go and not get at least one and maybe 15 people to show up for lunch or dinner, and the conversation starts immediately because we know that we share some things in common. So does it matter that you're Slovenian and I'm American? What matters is that we have this shared interest.
In 2012, I was lucky enough to capture my friend John Unger and his dog Shep in Lake Superior. We had talked for months about getting photos of him and Shep, and then the summer of 2012 came, and he talked about how he would take Shep into Lake Superior, and Shep would fall asleep in his arms because he had really bad arthritis, and this was the one way that he could get Shep to relax. It took away the pain. At the end of July, John came to me and said, I think I might have to put Shep down. Could you come do some photos of us in the water? So I went down to Lake Superior. John was in the lake, in the beach in Bayfield. He got in the water with Shep. Shep put you can see, he put his head on John's shoulder and he fell asleep. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever witnessed. I did my usual thing of posting a sneak peek on Facebook, because that's what I do for my business. I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no idea that my life would be changed forever, and those around me, their lives would be changed forever. I woke up the next morning. We were all over the internet. I started seeing people's interactions on Facebook about this photo. Friendships online were forming amongst people, and these things didn't matter. Where they lived didn't matter, what time zone they were in didn't matter, and their income level didn't matter. It just mattered that they had a connection and they suddenly had something good to talk about. This community formed around this photo, and these conversations about caretaking for others started, about pets and our love for them. And these really cool online groups started forming, and my favorite example is one that still exists to this day that makes blankets not only for homeless shelters, but for animal shelters. They send them all over the world. These women are still friends almost 3 years later, and the impact they've made on the world with just these blankets is something that can't be expressed enough.
You can sit at your house and make change. And we're talking about social change and political change and economic change in a way that was never possible before. And I think that that's something that we should embrace, and that we should look at what are the ways that we're going to make it the best of what people can be, as opposed to the worst of what people can be.
Is this generation, are they going to be all right? Are the kids going to be doing okay? Or should we...
Kids are all right. The kids are all right.
Think about what happens when you were doing that with your friends, right? You were there, you were joking around, you were gossiping, you were flirting, you were kind of consuming culture and consuming merchandise, but it was part of this all-encompassing social experience. The same thing is actually happening fully online, right? So all of those everyday practices, the gossip, the flirting, the joking around, that's taking place online. And it's taking place online with the same kinds of friends that took place in the mall, right? You met up with all the kids at school, but you also saw the kids at the neighboring school, and you're like, hey, who are you? What's that about? That same thing is where we're seeing it play out. So young people who are engaged online, they're primarily engaged with the people they already know. They're friends from school, they're friends from after school activities, they're friends from around the community.
No, I absolutely believe that the possibilities and the opportunities for people to live a rich, passionate life that allows them to express themselves in all the ways that they want to, regardless of where they live geographically. I don't think it gets any better than that.
Can we judge that the social networking revolution is a good or a bad thing?
Right, right. Regardless of whether you think, social technology and the internet is good or bad, it is. This is what, the genie is out of the bottle. So when I look at whether social technologies and the social web is a good thing or a bad thing, if it's horrible for society or wonderful for society, I think the reality is that it's here. It's not going away. And so it's up to people who use it to decide whether it is going to represent the best of human nature or the worst of human nature. And realistically, it's probably going to be a little bit of both. But what is possible today with social technologies is profound.
Creativity, learning, connection, what's so wrong with that? Is that less real than the fact that my grandparents came from the same village that your grandparents did, or that we worship at the same church, or our skin is the same color? So, again, I would not be so quick to judge.
Thank you.